about one more. We're going to talk about one more that wasn't on the agenda, but I want to hit it anyway. And this is from my man. This is from my man who's working at a company, big time company. This company's in Austin. I became a big fan of this company. Because it's owned by Elon Musk, and he's had a good track record. Over the last couple years, through 2, 3, 4. Matter of fact, he's had a good track record in the business world for a very long time, selling companies and so forth and building companies and being a change agent in the entire world, in the tech space specifically. Okay, personal life, I don't mind to get into any of that stuff, but as an influencer in the tech industry, Elon Musk is probably the best at it. And not only that, he's probably the world's richest man. So he builds Tesla. You heard Tesla, what they're going through at this point in time. Tesla is laying off people. They are laying off people. But prior to the layoffs, if anybody could get into Tesla, they're hooping and hollering. They have their dream job. And that's what this gentleman had. He had his dream job. But guess what happened, guys? Guess what happened at the beginning of this month? I just got laid off from my dream job at Tesla without warning. I just got laid off from my dream job at Tesla without warning. That's what happened to him, guys. You put all your eggs in one basket. You think that these companies are going to take care of you. It's not the company. It's the people that's working for it and the people in those top positions. And I'm going to tell you like this. You can be loyal to individual people. But don't think that companies and the people in those companies will make decisions that will impact your life. And they will do it in a heartbeat, especially if you don't bring value, especially if you don't have visibility, especially if you don't have the skills. When times like this hits, inflation is up, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, war is going on. If you don't have a good set of skills and showing your value at any company, doesn't matter what industry you're in, you may be on the chopping block. Let's talk about this gentleman right here. He says, I feel like my life got uprooted so a billionaire could save some money. Ooh, woo. You feel like his life got uprooted so a billionaire can save some money. He's taking shots at Mr. Musk. I worked as a recruiter at Tesla for 2 months before being laid off on June 17th. That's just a month, guys. That was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. I'm not alone. The company is planning to lay off 10% of salaried employees. There was no warning. I wasn't on any performance plan, and I had received nothing but positive feedback during my short stint. Guys, I want you to consider something. If you're going to be making the switch to a company at this point in time, make sure that that company is doing well. Understand how they are going to handle this economic recession. Understand how employees have been treated in the past. Do your research, do your reviews. Understand how people feel right now. Understand how the company moves. Understand who the CEO is and how he makes decisions. If he's a big Twitter fingers or not. And he's a me guy. Understand that. Because at the end of the day, you could be impacted. 2 months in, you're not proving a lot of value. You haven't proven a lot of value at that company. So when it comes to getting rid of people, you're going to be in a chopping block. So do your research before you make a switch in a time like this. You can make a switch. I am all cool for you making switches. Matter of fact, I coach people to make switches to help them gain additional earnings or increase their salaries and so forth. Continue to climb the ladder. I coach people to do so, but I also coach them to do the research as well too. Don't just make a switch to make the switch. And don't do it blindly. Don't do it blindly, because you could be a person that makes a switch, have a good situation currently in place, and all of a sudden you make that switch. You're 2 months in, the company's laying off people. You're one of the first people that's impacted. your life is uprooted. So this gentleman says there were no warning signs. He wasn't on any performance plan, and he had received nothing but positive feedback during a short stint. And for what? All for billionaires to continue to save a little bit more money so they can stay afloat while uprooting the lives of thousands of people. Tesla was his dream job, he said. I previously worked at Apple and Google and considered myself a tech nerd. I was excited to work at Tesla. It has always been my dream company of mine. Right? This guy says it always have been a dream company of his. And his job was to look for candidates to work on the autopilot self-driving software and on deep learning team. I live in Austin, Texas, and I work remotely. I really love my job and ordered 2 Teslas for myself, which I have since canceled. Worked at Apple. He's worked at Google. He's worked at the top tech companies that exist out there in the United States at a minimum, maybe even the world. He said, you know what? I'm going to move over to Tesla. Goes over to Tesla, dream job, dream company, flying on cloud 9, ordered 2 Teslas. He's making that big money, And his job was to recruit people in the autopilot self-driving software, which you think Tesla needs in order for them to continue to grow. And also on the deep learning team, AIME, right? The artificial intelligence. Now, he ordered those 2 Teslas and he has to cancel them. On the last day of April, our company's CEO, Elon Musk, sent an email saying we needed to return to the office. My understanding was that I would be fully remote since my entire job or my entire team was remote. I was transparent with my manager about my intention to work remotely when I was hired, especially since there wouldn't be anyone to collaborate with or support me if I went to the office. And they shared a lot of my concerns. Then we got word that the company was entering a hiring freeze. I was at an autopilot recruiting event in California on June 2nd when I got the email announcing a hiring freeze at Tesla. It was shocking for me. I hadn't been through this situation at any point in my career, but my colleagues reassured me that I shouldn't worry about it and that our team would be fine since autopilot was one of Musk's priorities and personal favorites. You guys have heard about this. You've heard the news articles and so forth about how Tesla wouldn't be much if it didn't have self-driving cars. Matter of fact, that was a statement that Elon Musk said in the last couple of weeks. So why is he laying off people for that team? Why? Probably because he's freezing hiring. And you're no longer needed if he's freezing hiring. If they're freezing hiring, you're a recruiter, you aren't going to be hiring anybody. Right? My colleagues reassured me that I shouldn't be worried about it and that our team would be fine since autopilot was one of Musk's priorities and personal favorites. We didn't slow down. We just started recruiting at a higher bar and made sure our exceptional candidates got through. The next very day, we found out about job cuts. It was just back to back. The day after the hiring freeze announcement, we were told the company planned to reduce its salary workforce by 10%. My colleagues were a bit on edge, but still not worried. I was concerned, but I trusted their expertise since they'd been at the company longer than I did. But this was also why I was worried. As a new hire, I didn't have the data or metrics to prove my worth on the team.
Damn!
That's my point, guys. Be careful when you're making the move to other companies, especially during this time. As he said, and this is the whole point of this conversation right now, guys, as the new hire, I didn't have the data or the metrics to prove my worth on the team just yet. So that's what companies do. They look at your value, how much you're bringing to the team, and they say, you know what? All right, we got to make these cuts, 10%. 10%. Somebody who comes in for 2 weeks or a month or 2 months who haven't really made a significant impact, guess what happens?
Damn!
Guess what happens? They're like my man here. They are like my man here who's struggling right now with not having a job. That's what they're like. They're like my man here who's struggling right now who doesn't have a job. That's what it is, guys. That's what it is. As a new hire, I didn't have the data or the metrics to prove my worth on the team just yet. And I'm going to say this something else to this. even as a seasoned veteran or a person who's been around for a very long time, make sure that you have the data or the metrics to prove your worth on your team. If you don't, you may end up like my man's here, working for nobody. Working for nobody. Right? And this is the reason why I do what I do. This is the reason why people book me for coaching sessions. You may be afraid. I don't know how to prove my worth for my company. I don't know how to prove my value in my organization. Book a coaching session, www.blkheights.com. I don't know how to gain that visibility. Book a coaching session, www.blkheights.com. I want to get promoted and make more money. I don't know how. Book a coaching session, www.blkheights.com. Right? So let's continue on the article. 2 weeks later, on June 17th, while I was on a call with a candidate, I got a text from my colleague that said someone on their team had been laid off. Shortly after that, I saw an ominous meeting on my calendar. Once a meeting popped up in my calendar that said, meeting Tesla, I knew my time at the company was coming to an end. Guys, if you're in tech and you get that weird meeting, on the calendar, hey, I need to talk to you. You know what? You already know what time it is. You might as well just look down and say this. I joined the virtual meeting about 45 minutes later, and it was my manager and a member of human resources telling me I would be terminated immediately. They basically read off script. I know it wasn't their fault, but I struggled to maintain my composure and not cry during the meeting. When it ended, I took a couple of minutes and sat in shock, and then I cried. Damn! Had this man crying. This man over here angry, hitting his desk, crying, want to hurt somebody. He was crying. He was crying, guys. And there's no humor behind this, because this impacts people significantly, and this impacted him significantly. That's why it's important to know who you're working for and to make the right decisions at the right time. Know when the market's going and so forth. Make better decisions. Your finances should be right. You should have a little bit of a nest egg. So if it does happen, you are not significantly impacting your family. That's why you should be watching Pocket Watching with JT. There's so many financial literacy channels on YouTube where they help you to do what's right in the case of something like this happening. It's not if it's happened or if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. It's when, because it's going to impact us one day in our lives that haven't impacted us yet. I've had it happen to me yet myself, personally. But I'm sure it's going to. I'm sure it's going to one day. What do you think I'm doing the things that I'm doing now to make sure that it doesn't impact me a significant amount? One day I may become a CEO or a GM. That company may be bought out. I'm a CEO. They don't need no 2 CEOs. They don't need it. I may become a senior vice president of sales. Our company gets bought out. They don't need 2 senior vice president of sales for a division. I'm gone. All these things can impact you in your career. That's why it's important to make the right decisions. That's why it's important to make the right decisions. So, as you can see, he was in a bad state. He was in a bad state. He ended up crying, took a couple of minutes, and sat in shock. I called my friends and told them what happened. I walked to my friend's apartment. They made me food, and we came up with something to post on LinkedIn. Within minutes, my company email was inactive. I tried to log back in my computer within minutes of being laid off, and it said my email was inactive. Had lost access to everything. Though I couldn't email my colleagues, I received messages from them over LinkedIn, and they've been supportive and have helped me to try to find other opportunities. But at the end of the day, this situation still sucks, especially because we're most likely at the beginning of a recession and everything seems to get more expensive as the weeks drag on. I feel for every employee who's been laid off because we're all scrambling for work now. We're all scrambling for work now. I didn't want to start the show off like this, but I thought it'd be a good idea to share that with you guys just in case you're thinking the grass is greener on the other side. You don't have a plan. You just want to go there and take money. You haven't done your research. To give you some feedback, to do your research first. Do your research first. Be serious about who you're going to work for. Talk to people. Look at what they've done before in the past, because the past is somewhat of a telling story about what they will do in the future, especially under the same leadership. Now, we've gone through a significant change when we heard about the company or the world shut down back in 2020. Companies were laying people off and all this other stuff. Then all of a sudden you saw the huge ramp up. Who knows what's going to happen? But there are still companies out there hiring. And there's companies out there slowing their hiring as well. You just make sure, if you're going to make a career switch, you do your research and do it for the right reasons. Okay?